Hello. Hi on Play Chess and streaming to YouTube. I thought we'd take a break from the Fischer-Spassky match to look at the highly topical tie-breaks which occurred recently in the London Chess Classic. Do I have to mute here, by the way? Yeah, I should mute there. So the London Chess Classic ended recently, and let's see what happened there. So in the main event, we had 3 players on the same number of points. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, Anish Giri and Magnus Carlsen all ended up with the same number of points. And under the tie-breaking system, it turns out that the kind of tie-break winner for the first stage was Magnus Carlsen, because the players that he beat, namely Nakamura and Grischuk, were kind of worth more than the players that the other two beat. So Maxime Vachier-Lagrave beat Anand and Topalov, and Giri beat Topalov and Nakamura. So Giri had the top score out of the players that they beat, because it's weighted more for whoever you beat. How many losses did they suffer? Basically, how many points did they get? So it was actually worth more. Magnus Carlsen's score was actually in effect worth more than the other two. And so Magnus Carlsen actually, because of that, he kind of qualified to phase 2, which a lot of people are saying was a bit unfair, because it meant instead of this kind of at the same energy level, a lot of chess for me is about energy management, and you, as an over the ball player, if you're an over the ball player, you kind of become aware of that quite often if you're tired and you play evening games, you're going to miss things. Energy does translate for me quite to some extent into the strength of play, the resourcefulness, the enthusiasm you have when you play. So this is actually quite significant that Magnus Carlsen could rest a little bit and just be entertained by Maxime Vachier-Lagrave playing Giri in this mini match. So we have this match which Carlsen he's gone through already. He's just going to play the winner, basically. What did you guys? Is everyone aware of that? Do you think that's fair? That's just how the tie-break system was set out for these tournaments. So the London Chess Classic became part of this circuit with the Sinkfield Cup and the Norway tournaments, and it was in the tie-break rules. So anyway, so in the first set of tie-breaks, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave played Giri, and in the first game it went like this. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, playing white, played e4. So Giri played e5, and actually we get this yes, it's like the Berlin defense, I believe. Ronnie plays Berlin defense, which is all the rage. So pretty standard moves which go into this queenless endgame, the dreaded Berlin defense. And this is a rapid time control, I believe. The first 2 games rapid time control, and then if they're drawn, then there's like a blitz game. So here we have h3, king e8, knight c3. Yeah, how exciting. It seems logical to sort of try and discourage g4. Yeah, it's nice to play with black. You've got the bishop pair. Your king's slightly inconvenienced. I think it is nice to play with black. In fact, should we flip the board? Because it's so nice to play with black. Let's flip the board. So h5, it seems like quite, what could, it's quite easy to play really, in a way. Knight e2. And black actually plays now b6. Put the bishop on this diagonal usually, with c5 later. Rook d1, bishop e7, bishop g5, bishop b7, white took, king takes. Okay, so yes, it's exciting, isn't it? Especially when you've got a headache, you want to do commentary on an exciting game. It's really good, this sort of stuff. Oh, this is fantastic. Yeah, knight e4. Okay, so a pair of knights come off and black gets in that c5. Should we put on the Kibitzer here? We'll put on the Kibitzer. I think black's equal here myself. What does the engine think? Engine thinks it's about equal as well. Knight b5. Yep. The pawn is attacked. You don't want to give d6, so it's actually protected. Oh dear. f4. You have the knight being evicted. Back. Encouraged to go back. King comes to the center and blocks against f5 for a moment. King f2, as if maybe g4 might be in the cards later. This is stopped. So there's always en passant now. a4. And the king gets to that blockade square. King f5, putting pressure on f4. King e3, defending. f4. Rook e8. The problem with the king on e3, of course, it seems that f6 is now on the cards as a major threat. Knight d5. Okay, this pawn is attacked, it's defended. But here, actually, not only f6 might be a concern, g5 actually, pardon me, g5 might be a concern as well. These are the major concerns. Rook d2. Now, rook d2 is a little bit cunning, I think, letting this other rook swing across if needed. So if g5, there might be something cunning here, like rook f1. Yes, and this is okay. So g5 is actually out of the question. While it might not have been here, just to show that, just give a nothing move. G5 here might actually be a lot better, because this, we've got the knight dropping off, you see. So we haven't got this. We can't do this. All right. So anyway, rook d2 facilitates. It shouldn't be that deep because it was a rapid game, by the way. Okay, so rook d2 facilitates rook f1. So it does seem to be designed against this, but can't stop this. And this is played f6. So yeah, I mean, isn't this amazing? Black really hasn't taken much risk with the opening and seems to have a very pleasant position. What he has done, to be fair, no, to be honest, what black has done is use that f5 square amazingly with his king. I mean, for a rapid game, this looks like amazing stuff. It's like clamping down on these pawns and getting a nice blockade on f5. It is great stuff. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it's powerful stuff. Rook f1. Oh, pardon me, didn't mean to do that. Scroll lock. Sorry, rook f1, sneak preview. Now f takes e5. F takes, which is check, of course. King g5. So this pawn is weak, clearly, and how is it actually going to be protected? It's not here, is it? So black's going to be a pawn up with a winning position now, nearly. Check, yep. And the bishop's actually better than the knight here. Look at that whole diagonal with the target. Pardon me. This whole diagonal with the target on g2. The knight's kind of passive here. Check. Rook f4. So black really didn't seem to do much and has achieved a great position. What a great opening. I think I'm going to have to start playing the Berlin myself. This is a fantastic advert for playing the Berlin defense if you can get it, isn't it? So rook e2. We have, yes, a mold threat of rook e7. That's parried with king f6. And what is black up to here? This pawn could be a target. Maybe fix that pawn as a target. It's actually protected here. But now there's a6 with the idea, well, keeping the knight out of b5. So we have knight d1, bishop d5, c4, bishop drops here, a5. Yeah, rook d4. It seems as though this is like a technically winning position without too much counterplay at the moment from white. Knight f2. Bishop f5, depriving the knight of any useful squares, basically. All these squares taken away. So d1 as well from the rook. So the knight's kind of restricted. Rook a2. Probably good to keep it simple. I mean, this is ideal to have against someone like Maxime Vachier-Lagrave because it doesn't seem to be too tactical. And I think, you know, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, especially, is quite dangerous tactically. But I mean, I suppose they all are at this level. So white is actually threatening something with rook a2, though. He's threatening to take, I guess, with this pawn in mind. So we see rook d6, king f1. If taking, then black just, I assume, takes with the rook and hits b3, right? So that's good enough. Rook d6, king f1, king comes up, check, king goes into the position, heading right into the position. g5, king e1, check. Now here, after rook e3, in fact, this is actually seems to be quite a powerful move. It's the top engine move, hitting that b3 pawn. In fact, white either resigned or lost on time. I'm not entirely sure, because when it's like blitz, you don't entirely see all the time. But from an engine point of view, it's +3 or more to black, this position. So let's have a look. What could white do here? If this takes, rook takes b3. Yeah, it looks c4 has sort of been virtually undermined, so bishop e6 is more effective now. What does white do here? I think he's falling to bits, isn't he? Or it's c3 like this. That's going to be dropping. So that's enough pawns. It's two connected pass pawns without much counterplay going on. And spike checks. We're just going here. It's no big deal, is it? If the checks just run out, I'm sure. So yeah, that was a fantastic advert for the Berlin defense on Rapid Chess. Yes, what an amazing weapon of choice. Black really didn't seem to have many issues, in fact. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to, like, I don't know why more people don't play this Berlin defense. I mean, what do you think? Anyway, so let's look at another game. So basically, after this game, Giri was 1-up. Okay, so Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, to stay in this match, he had to win the next game. So let's see the next game. Okay, I'm going to load up the next game. Alright, in the next game, I'll change the game data. Well, actually, hold on a sec. I'll put the PGN in to get the right game data automatically. One moment. It's just loading chess base up on the side. Okay. It should be there. Okay. Here we are. So Giri was playing white against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave in the second game, and we have d4. Let's stick with the black pieces. So Maxime Vachier-Lagrave MVL plays knight f6, c4 g6. We have this variation. Well, this is the Grunfeld defense, and in particular the variation is, well, I'll just call it fianchetto variation of the Grunfeld defense, some weird fianchetto line. Bishop g2, knight goes back, knight f3, knight c6. If you have Avrook's books, he recommends the fianchetto against virtually every black system. I never got really time to look at his books. It was raved around about. I ordered them from Amazon, but never really went through them. But if you like a fianchettoed bishop and you want to do this against every black opening, then check out yeah, the Avrook series. Apparently it's really good. If I ever got time to read it, I might read it one day, but I doubt it. So E3, both sides castle, rook E8, as though E5 is on the cards. We have B3. I have seen this before at the British Chess Championships a few times, this variation. E5, white takes with E5, knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and it looks as though black's a little bit active here already. Surely black's doing okay, you'd think. Queen E7, Queen C2, C6 depriving the D5 square, Bishop G4. Actually, this provokes well, sort of some softening up of the diagonal potentially. The bishop drops back. Whenever you do that and you provoke F3, you've softened up this diagonal basically. F4, bishop drops to G7. We see E4 now. That's getting adventurous. Rook 88. Black's position looks pretty solid with opportunities here. E5. Bishop goes back to G4, nuisance. Bishop F3 now is played, slightly weakening on the light squares. The engine suggestion here is actually to take on D8 to avoid this losing that bishop. This position, it looks counterintuitive though. It looks as though white's given up control of the D file, but apparently this is fine for white. Knight E4. This is a fine position. Apparently this is okay. That looks crazy as well, going into the X-ray, but apparently this is the move, and white's fine. If white doesn't do that, black's pressing knight E3, so knight E3 has to be stopped. This apparently is interesting, but anyway, we see in this game this move bishop F3, which kind of you're wondering now about. Well, I'm wondering about the light square weaknesses if that bishop is taken off, which okay, it's not for the moment. Rook takes D1, queen takes, rook D8. It's taken off now. And in fact, mirroring the first game, we have black playing for F6 with pressure on the poor E5 pawn. E takes, queens come off. So yeah, temporary pawn sacrifice. Bishop drops back. Ingenious. Black's got this infiltration rook ready. The default is blocked. King F7. Rook C3. Kicking the rook. Getting the pawn back. Yeah. And both sides are equal on pawns and everything. But Maxime Vachier-Lagrave needs to try and win this, so he's going to play on and on and on as needed. A4. Okay, so what happens here if takes? I think there'll be trouble after rook A8. It'll be difficult to protect that pawn, so that's no good. It's going to lead to trouble. Bishop D4. We have takes. Now takes, and in fact black gets that dangerous looking A file now. Black's in the driving seat here, because also there's this very nicely centralized knight, a bit better than that one, but this principle, I mean this A file is in black's hands. Rook D3, rook A2, so black to me seems much better here. H3, rook B2, some pressure though to deal with. Okay, H5, F5, G5, king comes up. Then we have rook H2. Actually, so this advantage for black is increasing a bit now after knight d8 apparently. Best move here apparently was g4. So if rook here, for example, king g3. Okay, so this might be a slight mistake on move 44, knight d8. Okay, it's going for this b7 pawn, but rook h2, knight takes, knight comes back to the center, rook h2, and the problem in here, it seems to be a weaving of a mating net nearly. It's only the e4 square which the king's got. That seems a bit dangerous. King e4 check, and now we see knight e7. This pawn is very weak. King c5. G4, not wasting any time taking this pawn actually. He wants maybe to play for h4 at some point. What does he? Rook e5. Now we see c5. Black wants to protect that pawn first before taking here. That's another point. Okay, finally takes that pawn. Check. It's a bit of a grind, isn't it? Check. And now finally h4. So a birth of a passed pawn here. The g pawn is born as a passed pawn. Check. No, not check. Knight e5. You have knight f4 hitting the rook. And here there's a nice tactic which kind of finishes the game at move 59. Well, black's kind of was better anyway with the g pawn, but what tactic finishes the game if anyone's awake? Black to play. What would you play if I give you 20 seconds? Any ideas? Black to play. Yeah. Alright, I hope you got it. I'm going to say, come on, anyone else before I mention it? Anyone play chess? Okay, someone plays chess as well. Rook takes e5, yeah. So, yeah, this is winning now, because if takes, then we got the check. And just takes. And if, by the way, if also the check, then we can do this. And remember, we've got the passed g pawn, so it doesn't matter if black's got this tactic anymore, because we queen the g pawn. So yeah, another enthralling game I was dying to show you there. Okay. As I say, sometimes I'm showing you games out of the sense of completeness or duty or historical significance, not always because the games are mega exciting. So I apologise for this, but this is like doing some sort of documentary for the tie breaks. You might not have seen these tie break games. Did anyone actually want to see the tie break games? I hope so, I hope someone did, because actually it wasn't just to win the London Chess Classic. They actually turned out to be, you know, it's the tie breaks also who's going to win the whole circuit, the whole new circuit which has been organised. As I say, the Sinkfield Cup, the London Classic and the Norway. So these are important games in inverted commas, which are not always mega exciting. They're important though. So okay, so we go into a blitz game now. I assume they play this blitz game now. So all of this while Magnus Carlsen is sleeping on the sides, he's resting. Magnus Carlsen is just ramping up his energy levels or something, I imagine, and so they're just battling it out, okay, until midnight or whatever. So we have this other game now, this blitz game, which I'll just get the PGN for one moment. Here we are, and by magic I'm pasting this PGN hold on. Let's delete this stuff. Can we get this in? No, apparently not. Okay. Delete all commentary, delete all moves. Delete remaining moves, delete previous moves. Go away. Just paste this in, please. Okay. Giri against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. This is the Blitz game. So Giri plays knight f3. We've seen knight f6, g3, g6. Yes, a double fianchetto system from Giri. b6 from both players. How exciting! Double fianchetto from both players. Castles, c4, c5. So Maxime MVL is playing black here. I'm going to call him MVL for short. e3, d6. So Giri, queen e2, knight bd7, rook d1. Yeah, it looks like some sort of default formation. And actually, you know, this sort of stuff is interesting. You know, this double fianchetto formation. It's interesting. It's actually, I've been thinking of doing a video or two on YouTube about interesting formations you can use independent of what the opponent does, because I don't think there are many videos like that, just looking at, you know, major formations you can just set up without knowing lots of theory. And you know, a lot of grandmasters are using these kind of standard formations. So okay, so we have e6, knight c3, queen e7. So this double fianchetto formation, from an engine point of view, it's a slight advantage for white, by the way, this formation. Now white's got a space advantage, it seems, at the moment, or incoming space advantage. Black actually contests that d5 thing by playing d5 here, though. Knight e5. Yeah, we have c takes, e takes, knight takes, and yeah, this pawn looks quite vulnerable actually. But white's okay here apparently. C takes, the d5 pawn is vulnerable. That's taken first. Now black takes e5, queen e4. Okay, threatening bishop takes b7. So we have bishop c8 with the idea, this one's good one now. The light squares are a bit vulnerable actually with the bishop stuck out here. So bishop g4 is get my arrows right, is looking good. Rook e1. Now here bishop g4 is a mistake actually in this particular position, because white can play what, for those that are awake? White can play, if bishop g4 was played here, what can white play, if anyone's awake? It leads to an advantage for white. Yeah, white can play in this. I'm going to show you, because unless there's a big delay, yeah. Queen takes. There's a pin here. Now after knight takes, rook takes. The thing is, black has bishop takes for this one. It's tactical actually. But after bishop takes, rook takes, white's in the driving seat actually. Here, white's a little bit better. Maybe it's not end of the world totally. No. But anyway, better is bishop f5, which is what's played apparently. Bishop f5, avoiding that tactic. Queen e3. This might have been a significant mistake. Apparently better is queen here, and it looks yeah, with this knight pinned, queen f4 seems playable. But this apparently is an inaccuracy, because we have now this. sorry, we have now this, which would have been quite dangerous for this e-file, but instead, actually, let's move on from that. Queen c5 was played. Rook ad1. Now we see bishop g4. Rook b1. Yeah, and yeah, it does appear, hang on, it does appear, where are we, at move 23, now either there's been some malfunction of the DGT, and all the moves have been entered somehow incorrectly for this game, which is a probability, by the way. I'm not actually claiming I know 100% for sure if this game score is correct. Maybe it's complete garbage, because it does appear as though, isn't this just weird? Because black has rook takes d5 here, just kind of winning. Now I blame the site Chess Bomb, because they're usually quite good. I mean, sometimes they're quite good on game scores. I'm trusting that they've got the correct game score here, but this does seem strange, to say the least. This continuation with rook b1. Oh dear, pardon me. I think the Carlsen games are going to have better game scores, so this does seem weird. There's a lot of red moves on Chess Bomb. I don't know if any of you have ever used that site, but there are red moves around here. Yeah. Okay, let's just pretend as though this is the game, and that rook takes d5 isn't possible. I think rook c1 was more likely somehow. Okay, bishop f5, yeah. Bishop e4, knight d3, takes, bishop takes, rook takes. We're back to an equal position, so let's imagine something got garbled there. Knight a4, rook d2. Black, it is slightly better here. Does anyone know for sure if MVL blundered? Okay. Maybe it's just because it's a 5-minute game. I don't know. Bishop takes g7, king takes. Black's better here slightly, apparently. And now we have c4 in this position. Interestingly, takes bishop d3. This makes sense to hit c4 and the rook on e2. Takes, yeah, black's still better, because look at the light square, they're all a bit vulnerable. Black's got that light square bishop. And now this move threatens the check, and coming in with this check, this is kind of nifty to get this check in on that angle. Check, check. More than nifty, near mating that stuff. Check here. So it repeats. Now move 40. Okay, check here. Now actually, white should have played maybe king e4. Plays actually king g4, which is another major blunder. Terrible. If that really is the case. It's just a blitz game. I mean, I don't know how we can seriously analyze this. Is he like running out of time when he plays king g4? Probably. Let's just assume he's running out of time. So Giri's running out of time. It seems terrible, because rook d4 check now, and this actually wins the knight at minimum. Doesn't even have to mate the king anymore. This is just winning the knight. Also, yeah, so that end of the game, white resigns, but this is also strong. h5 check looks pretty dangerous. Here, king h6, we're getting into a near mating that with g5. How does white stop that? Rook b5. Just take the rook. Exactly. So yeah, it's, I don't know, it's just weird, isn't it? So basically, from an engine point of view, well, this is a terrible position. On King E4, no, there is a problem with King E4. There's a mate in 5 of King E4 here, starting with check. Apparently, if F3, check, 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 mate. Okay, maybe Giri saw that mate in 5. Yeah, it's what you can come to expect if you've got weak light squares and your opponent's got a light square bishop. Just expect to be mated, basically. So that does seem to be a forced mate here. Yeah, that's unfortunate. If here, then that's checkmate. Sorry, someone said you think it's because Giri needed to win the Armageddon or something. Maybe. Possibly. I mentioned, you know, Magnus Carlsen had the highest quality score apparently. Giri, who did he beat again? He beat Topalov and Nakamura. Well, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave beat Topalov and Anand. Okay. Anyway, so yeah. So now Magnus Carlsen, who'd been resting all this time, just the luxury of just playing the winner. Yeah, he was white then against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Let's get the PGN for that. And the game went like this: E4 from Magnus Carlsen. Let's take white's perspective. We have a Sicilian defense. We have this Moscow variation, bishop b5 check. I think it's called the Moscow variation. White takes on d7 here, sets up the Roxy bind, and okay, white seems to have a position which binds black quite well. A nice bind. Actually, I remember once talking about binds. My friends in the past that I played chess a lot as a junior had a theory, John Naylor, that a lot of chess is about setting up a bind. Basically, it's a winning technique. You set up a bind against the opponent and then win. Maybe he's right. This is the way Magnus Carlsen apparently plays. Sets up a bind. So he's bypassed the main line Sicilian to sort of play into this line, and we've got this bind because, especially I suppose against, if you're playing a tactical player, it's an idea, isn't it? You kind of, maybe you're irritating them by setting up a positional bind. You're limiting their resourcefulness. Is that correct? Would anyone agree with that as a general rule? So we have knight h5, castles, bishop takes d4, queen takes, knight f6. Yeah, this is what is black doing apart from waiting here? So this is a nice bind. Yeah, knight b5 actually does threaten the rook. Okay, now is that pawn able to be taken? I doubt it. This wasn't taken. No, apparently it might actually be possible to do this, but you know, black's going to get this pawn. It's okay for white, but it's not desirable. Nope. Or is it? Sorry, it's actually the game continuation. Sorry, it's the game continuation. I was just wondering if this is desirable. Magnus actually took this. Yeah, yeah, he did go for this. Genius. Dry. He doesn't mind it being as dry as dust. So he took that insignificant looking a pawn, that poor a pawn, not minding this rook, seemingly quite active. e5. He is misplacing the knight at the end of this. This knight being forced to go back. Or is it? Nope, it doesn't go back. If it goes back, there's going to be big trouble. If the knight goes back, that's terminal and actually, because of this. and then we've got this end of game. Knight has to go to h5, as it does. It's got the f4 square if it's kicked, so we have g3 stopping the use of f4. Yeah, check. And for b3, Magnus is trying to get e7, and then later this pin for e6 could be useful. Check, check, check. How interesting. King h3. We have e6, rook e7, which now threatens knight d6 to coordinate the rook and knight against f7. Takes. King g4 first, because I guess this pawn is a problem. Although the engine suggests this is possible to do this, to sack that pawn. This is apparently a good position for white. Advantage for white. But yeah, Magnus protects f3 first. Yeah, so yeah, white's knight is better than this knight, it seems, at the end of all this. So maybe it was worth giving black that activity, that spurt of activity. Rook c7 check, takes, king f4, g5 check, knight e8. White's now a pawn up, equal on pawns again. Okay, they're going for each other's weaknesses. Equal on pawns. Now, yeah, I think a lot of people were imagining, well, especially soon after the knights come off here, the rook and pawn ending. This was really, I found this a bit strange. I don't know if any of you watched the live commentary for this. All the engines were starting to say 0, 0, 0. In fact, this engine is saying 0.00 here. So an engine could apparently draw it in a flash of a millisecond, this position with black. And no, the thing I found strange, I thought the super GMs would know all the basic rook and pawn endings, but this every rook and pawn ending, I mean, there's going to be millions of different types of rook and pawn endings, and you don't want to play them in time pressure, right? So I don't know, I mean, how many of us would draw with Magnus Carlsen in this sort of rook and pawn ending with black in reality? How many of us would do that if you're in time pressure? You know, I assume not many of us, right? That's why he's world champion. I mean, if you remember, he ground down Vishy Anand in even, you know, the long world championship games, often in end games. So he's going to keep, you know, putting the pressure on until you crack. Yeah. Even it doesn't matter what engines say. You know, you've got to play him, haven't you? So, I mean, the engine suggestion here for those interested is apparently black. It is dead equal in this position. Okay, apparently there's at least two moves which are dead equal, and when I say dead equal, I mean 0.00 for h4. And I'll just run this through with you. Takes, say king e3, because if we push this pawn, there's a check, and then we lose that pawn, right? So we can't push that pawn. So say rook e3, check here. Now there's three different moves at least which are equal apparently. The check, for example, and just going back here, we're behind the pawn, and yeah, we can carry on checking. We get the king in front of the pawn. Now in this position we can't even just do that. For example, you might think, is white making progress? Not really, it seems, at least from the engine prompts that I've got here. It seems as though this should be a theoretical drawn position. Here king e6, g6, or rook d4 is mentioned. It might be mentioning the check as well. Let me just check. Yeah, even that, just keep checking. I don't know. Yeah, h4, I mean, unless I'm imagining this, it seems as though h4 is basically a draw. I mean, does anyone dispute that? Does anyone dispute? Let's go through this. Dispute that h4 like draws. Does anyone? Does it not? But there's also another way of getting, you know, exactly, instead of, so he actually moved the king right. There's another way here of, you just play the check as well, and you can just transpose back into that with h4. You know, counterweight here with your passed pawn against this pawn. Yeah, so how did this disaster, sorry if you didn't know the result. no, yeah, pardon me. So how did the game continue? That's what I'm going to say. How did the game continue? Yes, rook king f7 was played. King f7. It's not a disaster yet, is it? Okay. Yeah. But this is a little bit tricky. I mean, you can't exactly be expecting this sort of trap, right? For Magnus to fall into, yeah, to win. He can't be expecting that trap. That's not why he played King f7, surely. It's not a blitz game, right? It's a rapid game. So the rook goes back, and it's apparently it's slightly more tricky now, this position, than before. Because the rook obviously can shield the king now. It's slightly more dangerous, but h4 is played anyway. Now you might wonder, hold on, is this really changed things? Rook d2 check, king c5. This position is slightly different. Is it? Maybe the king can go there, shielded by the rook. Okay, building that bridge, so to speak. So rook e3 is a bridge kind of building move. Okay, so we have h4, g4, and black plays a move which seems logical, h3. It's not as clear cut as before, and this bridge building move is utilized by Magnus. King e5. So the king can't be harassed with the checks. And now, in fact, king here, this pawn is a target, right? So if here, this wasn't played, rook h1 was played. If here, actually the king is supporting this, we can actually snap this one off as well. That's a target as well. So both the pawns are all of a sudden feeling vulnerable. They shouldn't have been. Why are both pawns feeling vulnerable all of a sudden? What on earth has happened here? Why is this so unbelievably difficult now? And in fact, hold on a sec. My question is, why wasn't g4 possible before? Wait, before we get into this king f7 business, in this position, why wasn't g4 possible there? Because we play the check, and we can do this apparently. So the king's nowhere near f5. It's not harassing g5 in this position. And if we try and like harass g5, then this check is actually winning for black. We take here and blockade this pawn, and we're actually winning for black now. This is totally winning for black. You see this position? So h4 at the right moments. I mean, rook and pawn endings have these finesses, and this is kind of brutal, yeah. That g4 wasn't actually, you know, as effective here, because this situation is just black's just going to do this, and that's going to be fine. So yeah, it's brutally changed in a way with a little finesse of this king move. So we have this situation where this is now possible with both pawns now seemingly targeted. There's the king coming to this one, and the rook's going to be focused on this one. And you might think, well, actually, can't we leave the pawn there? If h3 wasn't played, check, The king's going to come over here though. It's all of a sudden got a bit difficult. Making progress, it seems. Yeah, anyway, so we have h3 being played, h3. So what it seems, all of a sudden Magnus is making progress and the pawns are under scrutiny basically. Rook h1, d7. Already rook h1 is a clear advantage. Apparently this is more than +1 after d7. It's more than +1 here. If rook d1, king e7 was played, but if rook d1, then we take this one, and if that one's taken, then this is winning for white. Just takes the rook, and here king f6, keeping the king out, takes, and this is a winning ending because we can force the king out, yeah, and queen the pawn. So let's just go back. So yeah, in the game, d7, king e7. We have check, and so this pawn's vulnerable and dropping off, and the king is also cut off here now. So king takes g5. You might think h2. You might think of h2 here. King d6 played. If h2, rook e2, holding the rook in place. You don't want to lose this one, and holding the force field against the black king. So this position, white can basically make progress with the pawn. Okay, so that's not great. So we have king d6 being played, king h5, rook f1. Yeah, black's now not only a pawn down, his king isn't getting back, it seems, very easily. King g6, keeping the king out, but you might think the f8 square. The f8 square can be, the king can be kicked out with check, so that wasn't used, and this position is good for white, as well as g5. So let's see, king g6, we have rook f6 check, and the king went to, now this is funny because the king, Magnus put his king on g7. Apparently king g5 looks good to keep an advantage. Apparently this is really tricky stuff. You might think, well, Magnus's move won, why isn't this any good, this king g7? Well, apparently the check here is a nuisance for white. Just keep the checks up. Yeah, you can just keep the checks up. What does white do about this? Keep the checks up, because once you go there, king f8, and the king is able to help. So yeah, apparently Magnus didn't even play the right. This is the funny thing. Magnus didn't even play apparently the right king move here. I hate to say this, you know, I'm using Fritz 13. Maybe I should be using a stronger engine, but apparently king g5 was the way to keep some tension in the game. But what happens here after king g7? We have check, and let's move rook a6. The problem with rook a6 is this move rook f3, which sets up that force field. I was into science fiction films and they had force fields in some of them, so it's worth bearing in mind for your rook and pawn endings, the idea of setting up force fields against the king. And with this kind of force field, you can sort of move the pawn forward without being disturbed here. This is just winning now for white, this force field being set up here. So rook a2, we just, apparently this is just, we just make progress with the pawn now. And the king is just helpless there as a spectator. We're just going to make progress with the pawn. This is ultimately going to be winning. We just slowly drag the pawn along like this. and I don't know whose move is it. Black's move. So we play this. Here, here, here. We get this position, and now we can throw the check in to kick the king out of f8 square, and king f7. We're ready to queen. King e8. Rook e7. And then we're ready here for king f8 and rook f7. So say here, play king f8, and if check, then we play rook f7. Yeah. Isn't that tragic? The importance of a rook and pawn ending for determining the kind of tiebreak winner and the whole winner of the whole thing is mega important to know your rook and pawn endings, and to be able to play them out in time pressure or in blitz games, in blitz tiebreaks or in rapid tiebreaks. Yeah, so knowing the endings. I think it was said, I mean, many people say this about knowing the endgames, but I think especially in speed chess circumstances, if you know them inside out, then that helps. Does anyone dispute that? It's useful to know the rook and pawn endings. Does anyone want a question about that? I don't know. It's just, it's brutal, isn't it? It's brutal. But I guess to many of us, our intuition would be saying that rook a6 is doesn't look right. It allows white to set up that force field against the black king. So yeah, could black have drawn with rook f7 here? I think it's okay. Yes, this is the way, because even this is tricky. But if the king's knocking around still, it's going to be yeah. I think. Oh my god. Without actually having a table base, I can't actually say for sure, but this offers better resistance. You need actually a table base to analyze this position or know the endings inside out. So what's this on the comments? MVL had 9 minutes and Magnus 1 minute. He had 9 times more time than Magnus. Apparently this position is winning, by the way, for white. Yeah, this looks like a very dangerous position for black as well. So it might be the case that from this superficial analysis that black was in big trouble in any case. So I'm not entirely sure to blame the rook a6 move. Black seems to be having like difficulties in this scenario anyway. Yeah, it's tricky. What does black actually do? For example, this position is going to be transposing into a winning king and pawn ending, right? So maybe blame has to be assigned earlier, yeah, where, oh god, it's such a difficult game, isn't it? Instead of the king f7, who would have thought king f7? Why would king f7 be a bad move and h4 is needed? If we think about this, the king and the rook there, we've got the freedom to check the king without any defensive rook moves. The king can't use the rook to sort of step over this bridge to this side of the board. So the rook being there is convenient, it seems, to black. So what he did is actually help white considerably, in effect, by playing king f7, allowing this bridge building move rook e3. This is all I can say about it at the moment. Would anyone dispute that if I made that comment? Any endgame gurus would dispute that. We're just building a bridge basically, aren't we? With rook e3. It's starting to cause some issues for black, this position after rook e3. But if that's the level of punishment you get in an endgame, you know, not playing h4 instead of king f7, they're so tricky, aren't they? I mean, they really are, these rook and pawn endings. So anyway, shall we go on to the last game? Shall we have a look at the last game, or any questions here before we go on to the last game? Last game, or more questions here? Carlsen, the master of force fields. Yes. All right. Okay, let's have a look at the last game then. I think this game was more my cup of tea tactically when I looked at it. So let's look at it again. No, wrong one. Pardon me. This one. Yep, this is the one. Alright, so we have c4 for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, MVL for short. Knight f6, Carlsen plays knight f6, knight c3, we have a symmetrical English opening for the moment. e6, not so symmetrical now. e4, knight c6, bishop e2, we have e5. d3, d6. So both sides have these corresponding weaknesses in this position. a3, so this is like a traditional sort of plan to sort of play like this sometimes. Bishop e7, we have b4 immediately actually, and you might wonder, hold on a sec, let's just check this out. Black plays b6 here. If we try and take this pawn, I think that's asking for trouble, or is it? It is like a pawn take. There's not immediate refutation or anything, but apparently this, well, white breaks the bind on that d4 square, so it's an interesting gambit. This is an interesting gambit continuation. But yeah, Magnus just kept steady here. All he needs is a draw. He kept the position rock solid. He didn't entertain any dynamic play. Which is important to do against dynamic players. Don't give them any dynamic play. b6. So keeping a fortress-like position. Both sides castle. Rook b1. Knight d4. Keeping things simple. B takes. We have B takes here, otherwise we're going to lose the E pawn. It has to be with that pawn, right? Because otherwise there's E5 for nothing. Bishop G5, so it looks as though D5 is going to be weaker than usual. It's controlled now with the bishop E6. Rook B7, and sometimes an infiltration with a rook, or any piece in general, can be a tactical liability. The rook actually can be a tactical liability. In one sense, you know, our generalizations tell us, oh, rook on the 7th, you've got to get rooks on the 7th. But quite often, in particular positions, they do represent tactical liabilities. So is that the case here? We see knight d7, with black threatening now this bishop. Bishop takes e7. Queen takes e7, and it seems to be serving useful function to pin the knight. But even the concept of a pin here, always got to be aware that the actual pinner in the setup of a pin is also sometimes a tactical liability, and sometimes this backfires on the pins piece. Often, well, not often, sometimes, should we say, becoming a loose piece in itself. And unfortunately here, I don't know, because it's a rapid game, this next move kind of betrays that idea that the pinned piece can become a tactical liability, because Queen A4 was played in this position. And can you see what black now does? Black play, you might not have seen this game, I don't know. Maybe most of you have seen it, I don't know. Black to play here. What do you think black plays in this position? Yeah, I might have given some clues there. See, the promise of the rook on the 7th is to put pressure on the things like the pawn on a7, but it's a tactical liability, right? And black plays knight b6. It's not really a pin, is it? Because it's counter-attacking the queen now. And also, because this knight's here on this, if we take there and take here, we've got this with check. So actually it's kind of a double attack, well, treble attack. With this one move, we're attacking the queen, we're attacking the bishop, and we're attacking the rook, all with one move. Isn't that cute? Yeah, so beware of too quickly getting a rook to the 7th rank. So white now plays queen a6, which the pinned piece becomes part of a skewer now, because black skewers the rook to the queen here. Oh dear. Oh my god. Yes. What else for white here? This is actually the only move it seems to stay in the game. Queen a6. If we did take this, as mentioned, knight takes a4, it's really strong, it's undermining the situation. And if knight takes d4, you might think, then actually this is amusing. Knight takes c3, and again we've got two pieces attacked, and if knight takes, then we're taking this one with check. So black ends up, whatever way you cut it, slice and dice it, black ends up a piece up. I know, it's ridiculous tactics, it's ridiculous. This noble intention of putting a rook on the 7th severely backfired here. If knight takes, strongest we take here, so it takes here, we end up with this again, this scenario where two pieces are hanging. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So queen a6 is actually a box move, the only move. In the old informators, you hear this box move. It's a box informator annotation. I know some of you might have got informator, I don't know, but anyway, it's the only move. Queen a6 to play is the only move in the position, it seems. It goes into a skewer. Rook takes e7, bishop takes a6. We have rook b1. And yeah, black can, it seems, advantageously, well, at least from an engine point of view, take on e2 here. He didn't, Magnus didn't. Example here, this apparently is good with the idea of king f8, trying to win that rook. That rook is a tactical liability here. But the way Magnus played it is this move, which again, has ideas of king f8, of course. I know the rook's got c7 though for a moment. King f1, king f8, rook goes to c7. But now knight e6. Yeah, how many moves for the rook now? Not too many. Rook c6. And actually the king can leisurely come and munch the rook with king e7 to d7. I know it's terrible, it's disgusting. It's it's possible that King E7 is the strongest move here. This wasn't played, but what does White actually do to King D7? If he plays check, King D7, Knight takes, then we take here, and yes, we've got another pin here. King E7 wasn't played though. Rook D8 was played. Magnus is only human after all, right? So Rook D8 was played. Is this a blunder according to Chessbomb? Move 21. Yeah, King E7 was the strongest move, but should be a clear advantage. King E7. Okay, so Rook D8 was played. A4. The Rook's kind of stranded in any case. It's not going anywhere for the moment, and it's being won on the next move with Bishop B7. In any case, this is another idea to just win the Rook. If White's desperate to do something, apparently Knight D5, and if here, then we've got Knight takes B6, hitting this one, and this is the way of minimizing the damage, actually to nearly equal position. So Knight, it seems as though Knight D5 or Knight A4, this is another way, would have been to try and equalize. But the thing is, he's got to try and win, right? So if he draws, then he's out. So actually White not only is in a bad position, he needs to win this position. So anyway, A4 was played, and the Rook gets trapped. So basically losing the exchange by force. Takes. He's lost the exchange by force. Great. Bishop C8. Rook A6. You might think, is there some hope in the past A pawn? Let's see. That Bishop C6 is kind of nifty, looking after D5 there. Rook B6, yeah, Black's in the driving seat. The exchange up. Black's just clearly better here. The exchange up. And yep. You see, Rook on the 7th leads to this position. A Rook on the 7th. Who would have thought? Ah dear. Bishop D7. We have Black's not going anywhere with his knight, entrenched knight on D4. Chess is just too cruel a game to play. White's just grovelling really, the exchange down as far as I can see. D4, Bishop E4. And in fact the black rook here can actually be threatening Rook G8 now to come in like that potentially. We have Knight G2 simplifying. No, that's quite good. He's wrenching out that F5 pawn as well. Potentially. Knight takes, Bishop takes. Bishop comes to protect F5. Bishop F3. But White's not going anywhere now. The reason is anytime White tries to play A5, yeah, for this dream of getting a passed pawn, then either Bishop takes D5 is annoying, or even just Rook A8. And where's that pawn going now? Not going anywhere, it's dropping off. So there's no A5. Without any A5 potential, this is not too happy, this position. We have Rook A5 here because maybe there was a slight mild threat of A5 and King A4, although I'm not sure I believe that. Let's just check that for a moment. Magnus played this, but could he have just played this? Is this really on the cards? Not really. Bishop takes D5. Threatening Rook takes B5. This is just winning for Black. The King's going to come across. So it's all pretty hopeless, the exchange down really. But Rook A8 was played. And they repeated here. Draw. So with this draw, Magnus not only won the tie-breaks for the London Chess Classic, but for the entire circuit of the 3 tournaments. So a nice end of year Christmas present for Magnus Carlsen there. Great stuff. Yeah, that's how it ended. Okay, the next Kingscrusher radio show will be in January, one of the first Tuesdays, I think January the 6th. Let me just check the calendar. January, I think maybe the 5th, maybe January the 5th. Yeah. Okay, so hope you got something from that. And yeah, so it's important to what lessons can we learn? It's important to know your rook and pawn endings extremely well, even to play them out in tiebreak events, especially in blitz and rapid, to know the finesses of rook and pawn endings. Rooks on the 7th, you might think you can get away with routine rook on the 7th even in blitz or rapid. Not true. On the earlier games, the Berlin defense apparently is a good weapon of choice with black, even in a rapid game. It seems Anish Giri was on the way there, but then managed to lose with whites later on. And what was the other game? This nutshell of wisdom. Yeah. Not really sure. Okay, you might want to review the video and chat. I think it was about light square weaknesses, but yeah, it seems black was doing really well in these tiebreak games to start off with. Okay, so yeah, see you next year. Have a good Christmas if you celebrate it, and holidays. So see you next year. Happy New Year when it comes. Okay, thanks very much, and remember to like the video if you did like it. See you next year. Otherwise, I will be streaming casually on Twitch TV, by the way. Twitch TV Kingscrusher is my casual streaming, but these Tuesday shows will resume in January. But for casual streaming, yeah, Twitch TV Kingscrusher, if you bookmark that. Okay, yeah, thanks. Okay, see you. And comments or questions on YouTube.